I'm going to do a little video here on what I think basically the modern day essential firearms to own are, because times have changed from the old having a 30-30 Winchester 94 for hunting deer and your rabbit hunting 22. Times have changed in that, and this is probably going to be more aimed at the stuff I know, which is North America. It's going to be aimed at Americans and possibly Canadians too. So this is just my opinion, but it's what I really think the essentials should be for any, not gun collection, but if you own firearms, you should have these basic firearms. You should have these basic firearms because you have everything you probably will need in the near future, or until times change or whatever. So to begin with, I guess I'll go with the smallest, which will be our handguns. And I think the most important is to have basically what they call Nothing Fancy refers to it as a go-to-war handgun, but it's basically a full-sized combat pistol. All of these firearms that I'm showing they're sort of like my preferences. Some of them aren't even my preferences, but it's just basically an example. You have your own preferences to what you like, and this is the type of thing. This is the essential. You need to have basically a full-size combat style pistol, which is totally reliable. And to know if it's totally reliable is not going on YouTube and seeing reviews on Glocks and saying that your Glock is super reliable because some dude on YouTube said that. You actually have to fire it multiple times and to see if it is actually a reliable, something that you want to stake your life on if you really had to, especially when it comes to handguns. You have to put a lot of rounds through it to know. This particular handgun, just to give an example, when I first started shooting it, the magazine would actually drop out of it because I didn't know that this specific firearm has a tensioner for the magazine, and you manually tension it. And so had I thought this was the greatest gun in the world because of a YouTube review, and then I fired it and found out that the magazine falls out in a situation that, a hairy situation, that wouldn't have been a good thing. So you have to fire these things and make sure everything is good, because even Glocks and that can have defects in that from the factory. So that's how you're going to know whether it's going to be a good choice for you. But you have to have a full-size combat pistol. Highly recommend putting a light on it. This is just the cheapest garbage light that I could just find to just throw on here, but you should have a light on it. Your full-size pistol should have that. This is how I would kit it out. If you like red dots and all that, that's fine. That's up to you. But I would have a full-size combat pistol with the red dot. It's probably the most important piece if you're you're in your home, or you're in an urban environment. This is the type of thing that you can't go wrong with, and I say is probably the most important. The next I would definitely have is a smaller pistol, something like this Bursa. We don't have them here, so you can get them here, but I mean they look really ridiculous, like the micro compacts and that. And then because of our laws here, we have to have an extended barrel on them. They look ridiculous, but still I would have a very small pistol, something very compact, very light. Of course, the Bursa is not exactly light, but it is a smaller pistol. So I would have something like this. Oh, I should mention too, while I was talking about, it's specifically 9mm. I mean, if you don't know, I'm a big, huge fan of the 45 caliber, and I think it's a great, cartridge and for pistols and everything. But if I had to have one as an essential, it would be a 9x19 Parabellum pistol. And when it comes to the smaller pistols, you could you go anywhere depending on what size you want. If you wanted a really micro small pistol, you could have one in 22 caliber, 32 caliber. This is a 380 pistol, which I recommend something small like that, but I would get it in a separate caliber than the 9mm. I would not have a micro compact 9 and have a full size 9. I would have a different caliber for your smaller pistol, but I would recommend having a smaller pistol that is a little bit easier to use. You could even go with like one of those little Airlight revolvers in 38 or something like that. Just something simple, but have a smaller pistol as kind of a backup to the main pistol, your main combat pistol. And then I guess this would probably be the most important of all your firearms, would be something like this. It would be I guess I would call it a sporting or a tactical style of carbine rifle, specifically a carbine, not a full-size rifle. It would have to be a carbine, which would be defined as having, like, say, a shorter barrel like this and some type of a collapsible stock. It doesn't have to be collapsible, but it's much preferred. And then also it would have to have an optic. It's really the way to go, because if you like shooting off the irons, you can ditch the optic, but I would definitely have an optic on it. So you'd have to have your tactical carbine as your primary firearm. I say going with a rifle in that, it's just I think that's more of a specialist thing, and but the essential would be a short barrel carbine type. It doesn't have to be an AR-15, but I would highly recommend the AR-15 over pretty much everything else. I mean, I think it's a fantastic gun. I don't think I'm biased towards it. I don't think I necessarily think it's the best gun in the whole world, but I think that in North America, at least, the commonality of parts, the cheapness, the availability, you break yours and you find another broken one, you should be able to put pieces together. The thing I would say, though, when it comes to a carbine, if you like something else like AK style or something else a little more expensive or funky, I would just say that it's mandatory to get one in specifically 5.56 caliber, not .223, but 5.56, and you can get AKs in that same caliber. And after that would be 7.62 by 39. It would have to be in one of those two calibers. That's essential. So it's essential to have a carbine with an optic, and preferably something like an AR that's like widely available and in one of those two calibers. That's going to be your like essential. And next, which is another almost as essential, would be your pump action shotgun. And when it comes to the pump action shotgun, it probably doesn't matter whether you've got, like, say, a 28 inch with a full stock or a tactical. It's kind of would be up to the person. Like, if you live in the city and that, depending on what you want it for exactly, something like this, which is just a real short barrel shotgun, like this is your typical, like people say, like, your home defense set up for your average home, like suburban home or something like that. But if you live in the country and that, you might want a 28 inch barrel with even a full choke, something like that. It doesn't matter. But the essential thing is to have a pump action. I know autos are cool and everybody thinks, it's automatic, so that makes it better or something. But no, the pump action is really the way to go. If you're really good, you're well versed in shotguns, you could probably get away with something like you could even get away with a single shot break action if you're good enough with shotguns. But for the average person, for the essential collection, it would be a pump action shotgun, because the way the way jams and stuff are cleared in these are using your, like, the main action here in that, and they're pretty simple to figure out. But like, this is the one I have here. I have it set up just with the shortest barrel possible. I actually do not like the sights on it, and I highly recommend just a bead sight. That's the way I would go, just a simple bead sight and with short barrel, something like this. And I've got the style of stock. It's just what I prefer. You could prefer whatever you want, however you want to set it up. But the pump action, specifically 12 gauge also, shotgun, it has to be 12 gauge because it's pretty much the universal round. I'm not saying it's the best round. I'm not saying it's your favorite round or my favorite round or whatever, but it's so widely available. Everything from, police, military use it. It's been around for a zillion years. So it has to specifically be in 12 gauge. The last one that I would pick, and I'll explain why I've left another group out, but the last one I picked is a 22 caliber rifle. This is just one I grabbed, and I would get anything you can get in 22. And actually, it doesn't even have to be a rifle. It could be a pistol. I would recommend a pistol with a long barrel, but a pistol or a 22, just the cheapest off-the-shelf 22, doesn't really matter, because this is not really going to be used, I would think, in a life or death situation. This is more of a small game getter. Just the fact you can take like a 50 round box of ammo and put it in your shirt pocket if you had to. I mean, it's still a very useful firearm, and it's essential to have one of these. And so yeah, it can be any 22, and specifically 22 long rifle. You do not want a 22 Magnum because I don't know why anybody would want a 22 Magnum anyways, but specifically you need a 22. The only category I'm leaving off, which is sort of like the old way, as I mentioned in the beginning, is the full-size, hunting rifle. The 30-06, the 300 Magnums, the large caliber bolt action rifles would be typical. I left them off because the way the gun market has changed over the years, ammo has gotten so ridiculously expensive for the larger calibers. Like even the surplus military, like getting a box of say 303 is like say $40 now. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous to be able to build up a big pile. I know some people have them already, have had them for years, and that's fine, but it's too expensive. Those rifles are too expensive, and there's more urbanization of everything now. You don't necessarily need say all that huge range, and I don't know how many people. It isn't like it was back in even in the 80s and 90s where people went out hunting and they use their rifles and they know how to use them. I don't know how many people even have a firing range close to them where they can actually use those firearms and see what they can do at, say, 500 yards or something like that, to be able to efficiently use them, which the carbine, not necessarily the rifle version of this, AR-15, is perfectly capable of hitting 300 yards, no problem at all, especially with an optic. I mean, it could even probably go to 500 yards if you had an optic and you use this enough, because it's cheap enough still that you can practice with it. Those big old hunting rifles and that, you could probably still find them cheap, but the ammunition, it's just not there for them anymore, and people don't use them the way they once did, so you're not going to be proficient with that particular firearm. It's basically just going to have a huge heavy bullet and a big huge heavy caliber, and you're going to be using it at ranges where something, probably even the shotgun, would be effective. So that's why I would stay away from those. And again, this is my opinion. If you like those kind of rifles, you've got a huge, some kind of stockpile of ammo for them, and you've been hunting since you were 3 years old or whatever it is that the people always say, that's fine. You do whatever you want. But this is just my essentials. Essentials to own firearms is definitely you need to have a full-size combat pistol. Again, you have to make sure this is your most reliable of all your weapon systems is to have a full-size combat ready pistol, and highly recommend having a flashlight on it. And then after that, I would have a smaller sort of a backup pistol. It can also be a pistol that's the type of thing that you might have to hand off to say a loved one or something like that, and it's something that is more handleable by someone who's not as experienced into firearms. It's smaller. It can even be a thing where it just, if it's given to someone, you might not even have ammunition in it, but it comforts somebody. So I always recommend you would have a sort of a backup to your main combat pistol. Definitely have a shotgun, preferably a tactical shotgun like the one I have here. It's going to depend on your environment in that, and I 100% has to, okay, but in the also with the pistol is definitely 9x19 and some other caliber, preferably something smaller. And then with your shotgun, it has to be 12 gauge, and it has to be pump action. Where you go from there, if you want any kind of other action or whatever in caliber, that's fine, but it has to be pump action 12 gauge in my opinion. Then you have to have your tactical carbine, and it should be a carbine version of, say, your AR-15. That's going to be your best option. But AK variants, there's like AR-18s or AR-180s. There's various ones. There's all kinds of hipster ones like the South Korean guns, and even the H&K, like HK-33s and that. Of course, everything is going to depend on your local area, what's legal to you and what's not, because obviously where I am, we're heavily restricted on what we can actually get, which is another thing what you should check into in your area is what's widely available there, and that can influence your decision. But it should always be a carbine type of weapon or rifle, or it should be a firearm. It should be a carbine type of firearm, and it should have an optic, and definitely should have a flashlight, but I don't think the flashlight's mandatory. I think the optic is probably mandatory. Then the last would be any 22 firearm there is. Like if you want a rifle and have a optic on it, a semi-automatic rifle, you can have a pistol. I don't recommend a little say like a micro pistol in 22 caliber, but some type of 22 caliber. And this is my like essential firearms for like a modern day setup of what you should probably have. If you have all of these, you've got your bases covered, and I don't think you'll regret having any of these. And all of these firearms should be easily affordable to anyone. Like even AR-15s, I know they have gone up in like price. I guess they've gone up quite a bit in price from when they were super cheap, but there's still excellent ones out there that, I mean, build one yourself if you like if you really can't afford a higher end one and you want higher end stuff. I recommend building it yourself. But I mean, I don't want to get too long into the video here, but this is my essential firearms for like modern times. So really, other than that, thank you for watching.